Jim Gibbons is not your run-of-the-mill executive. He's not your run-of-the-mill anything. 28 years ago, he started an insurance company and gave the employees a chance to own it. And instead of investing the company's money in the world of high finance, he put it into small, minority-owned businesses and inner-city real estate. He even spent more than $1 million of the neighborhoods to college. So, is Jim Gibbons a hero? Well, he is, and he isn't.
Yeah.
Jim Gibbons didn't just send kids to college. He also gave his financial and emotional support to a program the kids designed themselves to raise their self-esteem and to help prepare for success, both in school and in life. The kids call it Young People on the Rise.
You can become whatever you want to become. Where does it start? Right up here. Right. That's right. Exactly right.
They help each other with homework and spend time helping others in their community. For the last 2 summers, they've spent 3 weeks on a local college campus getting a feel for what college is like
3 2/3
and having fun learning.
plus 2 and 5 6.
But in the beginning, they weren't so sure about Jim Gibbons.
People don't just come out in the blue and promise you a scholarship. So from the very beginning with me, it was one of those things where I just was thinking in the back of my mind, this is too good to be true. This is too good to be true. You know, I leave next Friday, and I'm still thinking, this is too good to be true. So,
You leave next Friday for college?
yeah, I'll be attending Florida A&M.
As Young People on the Rise has developed over 7 years and the kids have started graduating from high school, 30 of them have entered college. Kia Beal is in Howard University, preparing to go to medical school. Alonzo Patterson is about to graduate from Lincoln University and already has a job with the Federal National Mortgage Association in Philadelphia. Malik Fuller is in college, as is his sister Fatima, who won a 4-year academic scholarship to Rutgers.
Malik, when you met Gibbons, what did you think of him at first?
I didn't like him. I didn't like Mr. Gibbons. My feeling was, what is a white man coming into a black, drug-infested community for? You know, no one else is coming to this community, black or white, to try to help us. But, you know, as the program went along, I began to see that he not only talked the talk, but he walked the walk, even though he was, quote unquote, white, you know, but, well, white.
Jim Gibbons grew up on the estate of a wealthy investment banker. His father, an immigrant from Ireland, was the chauffeur, and his mother, a domestic worker.
My father and the people who worked there were not treated very fairly by the people. They were, in fact, slaves and were there at their bidding.
How do you think growing up there and what you saw has affected you and your philosophy, your outlook on life?
Seeing how people looked at immigrants and domestics, I had a great sensitivity for people in that same position in D.C. who, they weren't immigrants, but they were in the same kind of position. I recognized that among those people were geniuses and bright people and talented people in the same proportion they existed in all races of our society.
No better, no better, no better! Yeah!
Who made that great catch?
Me.
Huh? Yeah, all right. Can I have your autograph? That way. That's what it's like to be a hero. All right, I'm gonna put this up on my wall.
What kind of progress have you seen with these kids and young people on the rise?
It's like watching my own kids. To see these kids blossom as they go through the stages of life is one of the great joys and the reason, frankly, most of us stay involved.
Gibbons got involved with the kids when he decided his insurance company should invest in a development in their community called Parkside.
6 years ago, 7 years ago, he came down here. It was absolutely the most depressing, devastating piece of property I've ever seen in Washington. There were 13 murders in the project here and the one next door in the year we came in here. The drug dealers were rampant, and it was a place that was called the largest open-air drug market in the District of Columbia.
So Gibbons Insurance Company invested $7 million rebuilding Parkside. Gibbons hoped that when and if it's ever finished, 400 families who are sometimes called the working poor will be able to buy these homes, and that the company would then make money on its investment.
I'm proud to have been a part of changing what was a death camp in America, in the nation's capital, into something that I'd be proud to live in.
After deciding to invest his company's money in Parkside, Gibbons called a meeting of the neighborhood kids. Alonzo Patterson came to that meeting, although he had other plans that day.
I was supposed to be a drug dealer that day. I was going to sell my first drugs that day because I wanted to be a drug dealer so bad. And it never happened.
Why did you want to be a drug dealer?
Why do you want to be a lawyer? Because your father's a lawyer. Why do you want to be a doctor? Because the people you see are doctors. We didn't have that. All the people I saw who had money were drug dealers.
So when we met the kids, we said to them, just tell us, what do you think we have to do to encourage you to stay off of drugs and not get involved in drugs? Anything in the world.
For Jim Gibbons to come into a black community and say, yeah, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, we threw something at him like, let's go to Virgin Islands just to see what he's gonna say.
And I said, okay, and if you do what we say you should do, then we'll take you to the Virgin Islands. So we started a program.
Gibbons said if the kids agreed to make sure no one got pregnant, to feed the homeless, to stay in school and stay off drugs, they'd get their trip.
I mean, that was a dream.
It was like a
I started
reward.
crying when we were on the plane. I was so happy. But
That was our reward. We had never been rewarded for doing anything positive.
How'd you pay for it?
The insurance company paid for it. We considered that, I consider that to this day, probably the best single investment I've ever made in my life. Out of those first 25 kids, at least 3 of them, at least 3 would be in prison or dead now. I know, and they will tell you if it wasn't for that trip. It cost $35,000 a year to keep one kid in prison. We spent $30,000 to take the kids to the Virgin Islands.
David Levinson, the insurance commissioner for Delaware, the state where Consumers United was incorporated, had trouble with that.
It's not an investment at all. It's not a financial investment. It is charity.
He says it was the best investment he ever made.
Well, if the goal of his investment is salvation, personal salvation, perhaps it was. But I don't make those judgments. God doesn't underwrite. And from my viewpoint, it wasn't an investment at all.
Let me ask you your impressions of Jim Gibbons. How would you describe him?
I like Jim Gibbons. He's really a dedicated humanitarian. He's a charitable guy. He wants to do the right thing, and he's worked hard to do the right thing. But unfortunately, he's done it with other people's money.
Every single nickel that we put in to the kids was added to the mortgage. So I look at it as the same way as if we were putting extra adornments on the building in order to make the building more attractive. The money we put into the kids to inoculate the community against future drug use and create a future for the kids was a really significant investment.
If you put your money in a financial institution and think you have the right to get it out when you want it, and you go to get it, either because you have a health claim or you want to redeem your life insurance policy or whatever, and you're told, I'm sorry, the money isn't here, I invested in a long-term real estate project and then took more money and sent children from that area to college because I think it's a wonderful thing to do, and someday, 5 or 10 or 20 years from now, I believe you'll get your money back. You don't know where you're going to be 5 or 20 years from now. You need your money now, and it's not there.
Insurance companies have $3 trillion of people's money from the premiums they paid, and they invest that money. Now, a lot of that money they invest in office buildings downtown that are empty. Last year, $150 billion of that money went overseas. Those investments are considered okay because they're traditional investments. We consider those risky investments with no social value whatsoever.
He did what he thought was right. It did not work out. Sometimes you cannot follow the rules and everything still works out for you. That didn't happen in this case, and the company had to be shut down so that the policyholders' money could be protected.
As insurance commissioner for the state of Delaware, Levinson was required to take over any company thought to be unable to pay all potential claims by policyholders. Last February, Delaware took Gibbons' company away from him and put in its own managers to try to find a buyer for the company. So after more than a quarter of a century spent trying to prove his point, Jim Gibbons' dream has become impossible. Empty desks and vacant offices are all that's left of his insurance company. He's no longer invited to lecture at Harvard Business School about business ethics. His roster of clients, which range from a large group of retired military personnel to the National Organization for Women, is no longer covered by his health insurance.
We called the kids together and I told them what had happened to the company, and that we were no longer going to be able to support the program.
Do you think he's let you down?
No.
But he came in and made promises.
He kept it. He fulfilled his promise.
He lost his company because of it. Because he felt so strongly for what he was trying to do for us.
What he
He
believed.
invested in us.
We've had all these so-called black organizations that are out to help the community. We've had them come in and just take users. And then you have a white man that comes in and he invests in these same people and he's still around even when the money is gone. That has to tell you something.
Young people on the rise and their parents met just before the fall semester began to divide up the money they've been able to raise since Gibbons lost his company.
Right now, we've allocated approximately $3,000 per student to pay the first part of whatever they need going into the year. That will get all past bills paid. We'll get all students in with no bills due and owing when they go to school.
The last semester, you didn't need but 1,100 plus 200 for books, right? So we're going to say...
Let's say 15, just to be, basically safe. I expect when you're famous, you're going to not turn me away from the door when I come with my little tin cup.
Jim Gibbons has a zeal, a dedication to changing reality. And when one seeks to change reality, one usually self-destructs.
Alfred Moses was Jim Gibbons' legal advisor for more than 20 years. Gibbons asked him to talk with us.
Jim has always been a winner. He's done some remarkable things against very long odds.
He did fail, I guess.
As a businessman, he failed. One would say he was doomed to fail.
Because?
Because he wasn't acting in a way that's consistent with the reality in which we live. One cannot change the business world. One cannot change society by one's own actions.
You don't have a company.
That's true.
You failed.
That's true.
It's over.
I'm over, temporarily, but we have proved the point. We have proved that these kids are going to go to college. Parkside, let's say that I'm right about Parkside, and in 2 years, Parkside's complete, the company's paid off. Who's right? Me or Levinson? Me or the regulators?
For now, the construction at Parkside has stalled. It needs more money to be completed. Jim Gibbons has been working part-time at a loan company and now plans to start a foundation. And the kids? They've been trying to keep their older members in college and young people on the rise going any way they can. They've tightened their belts, asked for donations, and even washed cars.
So we've done 7 washes so far.
With Jim Gibbons' failure, the kids might actually have learned a lesson for success.
Even though people help you or promise you things, something might always come along that, mess that up or deter you for a minute, but you have to always do things for yourself, and you have to know that you can do it.
He's helped impact people's lives, people's families. To people in these families, college is a viable option now. They're expected to go to college. People in this community expect their children, if they join Young People on the Rise, to go to college, regardless of their money here or not.